Did you find out your draft number? Were you a number 20 like I was, or were you a really high number, like in the upper 200s or the 300s? If you were a lower number, you would have gotten an induction form, which would have told you report for your physical examination on this date, this time. This is your life now. There was a movement that happened on a lot of college campuses of kids who said F the draft. And they burned these cards and they burned their draft cards saying, I don't believe in this war. This is an unjust war. But that was also a crime. Not showing up to your draft induction was a criminal offense. So there were people on the anti-war side that certainly would have done this more than people on the pro-war side. But even if you were drafted, you still might not go to Vietnam. It wasn't an automatic. Now, if you got listed, they rated you and they gave you a number. If you were 1A, you were ready for immediate induction. We're going to get you in and we're going to get you over to Southeast Asia. But some people did get that conscientious objector status. Some people were students. If you were in college, they would let you defer. That means you could pause the draft. And so there were kids that were staying in school just so they wouldn't have to go to Vietnam. There were professors who were anti war who gave kids passing grades just so they wouldn't have to go to Vietnam. Maybe you were in extreme hardship. For example, you were the breadwinner at 18 for an entire family because maybe people in your family had passed away, or maybe they were not able to work. You would maybe get a deferment, a pause. If you were a minister, they would let you pause. This is what Muhammad Ali tried to do. He said, as a Muslim, I am a minister of my faith, and ministers can get deferments. I want to be deferred from fighting in Vietnam. And some people were just 4F and they were considered unqualified for military service. For example, like if you had a heart problem, if you had severe asthma, they don't want somebody having an asthma attack in the middle of a firefight in Vietnam. This is very famous for President Donald Trump. When he was of Vietnam draft age, he went to a podiatrist, which is a foot doctor, and this foot doctor gave him a doctor's note that basically said he was not qualified for military service because he had bone spurs in his feet. Now, maybe that doesn't sound super serious, but that got him out of serving in the Vietnam War. This is another time where that song Fortunate Son might come up, where people who had powerful and rich daddies were able to avoid fighting in the Vietnam War, whereas people of lower socioeconomic status did more of the fighting. They fought for freedom in a dangerous, hate filled environment. Then they went to Vietnam. What about black soldiers in the war? This was a big theme at the time. The Black Power movement was really powerful at the same time that this was happening. Um, this was actually a Navy commercial. Your son can be black and Navy too. They're trying to recruit people of color to join the military because there were a lot of black people at the time saying, why would I go fight for freedom in another country if I don't have complete freedom in the country here? So that was a good question that people asked. Some people called Vietnam a white man's war, but a black man's fight. 11% of the US population was black in the Vietnam era, but 12.5% of the soldiers in Vietnam were black. Well, they're more than their percentage of the population. And then 14.9% of the casualties, and just to make sure you understand, the word casualty means either injured or killed, not killed. A lot of people think it means that 14.9% of the people who died in Vietnam were black. Hurt or killed were black. This is a disproportionate issue. Um, Donald John Trump didn't have to go to Vietnam. President George Bush didn't have to go to Vietnam because they had wealthy parents. But these black kids, maybe from the ghetto in Chicago that we talked about when we did the Two Americas assignment, maybe did have a greater chance of going and fighting and dying in the war. Here's MLK. We were taking the young black men who had been crippled by our society and sending them 8,000 miles away to guaranteed liberties in which they had not found in Southwest Georgia and East Harlem. We have been repeatedly faced with the cruel irony of watching Negro and white boys on TV screens as they kill and die together for a nation that has been unable to seat them in the same schools. Here, Dr. King is pointing out that irony, that we haven't had the same equal rights here, but we're fighting for that in Southeast Asia and Vietnam. Muhammad Ali, at the height of his career, um, famously said, "I ain't got no quarrel with them Viet Cong," which were the North Vietnamese soldiers. They never called me N word. He's called that in his own country, and he is asked to go fight. He famously took the gold medal he won for the United States of America for boxing in the Olympics shortly before this and threw it into the river to protest the fact that now my country is not respecting my decision to be a conscientious objector, and I object to this war because I believe it is unjust. No, I'm not going 10,000 miles to help murder, kill, and burn other people simply to help continue the domination of white slave masters over dark people the world over. This is a day and age when such evil and injustice must come to an end, is a famous quote by Muhammad Ali. So, you've made your decision. Now it would be interesting for you to reflect. Did you make the right decision now that you know your draft number?